Hello, Discord. First Barrier 2026. Was I on? I don't know.
I thought you were.
Last week? Was it last week?
I don't know.
All a blur.
Yeah. I could find out, but I'm just quickly doing some last minute revision.
We need Lee for this kind of stats, but I'm pretty sure I've been on this year. Blimey, what's going on here?
Some tea went the wrong way.
Contagion.
Won't spread over VoIP, I'm almost certain. If it does, then Zoom really messed us up over the pandemic.
No wonder the French don't want to use it anymore.
No, indeed. We're not talking about that, are we?
I don't think so. I'm just throwing in topical snippets.
Current affairs all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, Ninja Nurse saying you need some antivirus down.
Very good.
Oh, lovely pair of tangerines you got there, John.
What?
I think technically they're oranges, but let's not be fussy.
Tangerines.
Oh, I have
Seen
got.
as
I tell you what I have got.
clementines.
Even better. I have got some. See if I can get this up to the camera. Homemade cherry cake
Looks good.
with extra amounts of cherry.
Yeah,
How about
say.
that? That's what you call a seriously cherry cake. Think of all that vitamin C.
100% good for you.
Recipe, ask my husband. He will give it to you. No, the Pringles got eaten last week.
There goes the G&T.
Or more G than T, but no, actually it's water. As you can tell by its flatness, it's not exactly bubbling, so definitely not enough tea in there. Are we about to start?
I'm out of tea. Is it time already? My God, yes.
It is 1 o'clock.
Good afternoon and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is Thursday the 29th of January and I'm Barry Collins, News and Features Editor of PC Pro. And with me today I have Nick Rawlinson.
Hello, Barry. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Nick. I've got Darren Graham-Smith
Hello there.
and John Honeyball.
Hello, dear heart.
Fresh from the dentist chair, John. How's
Yes.
the molars?
Oh, my molars are grinding fantastically, thank you.
I went to the dentist last week. I spent 10 minutes in there and he charged me £250. So if you can skip that kind of fee, I think we should retrain as dentists. That will get the economy going again. Anyway, talking of companies that like money, Apple, John.
Is it with me?
No, it's not. You're right. It's Darian.
Sorry, I was just explaining. I was distracted. I was on Discord trying to explain to Running Duck that my T-shirt, which is branded Veeam, who are an enterprise backup specialist among other things, it often gets attention. I got sent this as a freebie for signing up to an online conference that I then accidentally forgot to click and go on the day. So I'm doing the best I can to make it up to them by advertising their brand. Anyway, this isn't about that at all. This is about, as you say, Apple Pay. James Daly is a British financial campaigner, among other things, and he's just launched a £1.5 billion class action lawsuit against Apple, claiming that Apple Pay is inherently anti-competitive. The reason, he says, is that in order to use an iPhone for contactless payments in a physical shop, customers need to customers of a bank need that bank to have signed up for Apple Pay, which also obliges that bank to make Apple Pay available for online purchases. But more to the point, although Apple doesn't charge the customer and doesn't charge the retailer, it does charge the bank a certain amount, which Mr. Daly claims is not in line with industry practice. The Competition Appeal Tribunal is looking at it to decide whether the claim will go ahead. The Guardian's done some maths and has said that if this does indeed indeed succeed and Apple are found to be guilty to the tune of £1.5 billion, well, Mr. Daly is claiming this affects everyone, all of us, not just iPhone users, because it is an operating cost that all the banks have to swallow. It results in pushing up the fees for everyone, pushing up the expenses, pushing up, just the amount that the banks will try to claw back from their customers. But yeah, if you divide, therefore, the very large number of potential claimants by the amounts that's being asked for, The Guardian reckons we could be in line to get as much as £26 each if his claim is successful. Apple, however, says no. We don't. We're not doing anything. Well, they didn't say we're not doing anything underhand. Actually, they specifically defended their behaviour by saying that, although, yes, they do charge banks for access to Apple Pay, there are benefits to the banks, notably fraud reduction, which the banks overall benefit from. I don't know. It's
Okay. So normally if you pay on a credit card or whatever, the retailer pays the charge. So why is it the banks picking up the charge here? I know I'm possibly asking you beyond your pay scale here, Darren, but do you have any sense of why that is?
No, I have no sense at all. Is it something to do with perhaps the international nature of Apple Pay, the way it started in the US? Is it because Apple was kind of carving out a whole new way of processing transactions, whereas credit cards obviously have been progressively regulated over the decades? I'm happy to hold my hand up and say I don't know, but yes, that's a very fair point. It is an unusual arrangement, as James Daly points out, and it's also worth mentioning that Android Pay, Google Pay, does not do this. It's only Apple that is charging banks for access.
What do you make of this, Mr. Honeyball?
Well, like Darian, I don't know enough details of what's going on in the back end. To be honest, as a customer who uses Apple Pay all the time on my Apple Watch, I very rarely carry cash. In fact, the only time I really use cash these days is to go to the Turkish barbers in Huntingdon, because like most barber shops, they seem to be a heavily, shall we say, cash-oriented business. Whereas everywhere else, I pay on Apple Pay, on almost all the time on Watch. Now, for me as a customer, I'm not losing out. I'm not paying an extra amount. It's my
Well, you may be in the sense of bank charges.
Well, let's come on to that. In terms of the transaction itself, I'm not being surcharged. Okay. In terms of the shop, they're paying a pretty reasonable rate for the credit card transaction. It's not like American Express, for example, that charges quite high rates to the vendor to handle that, which is why, of course, a lot of places won't take American Express. As for the necessary relationship between Apple and a bank and a fee for handling that traffic and that connectivity, well, I'm going to say Yahoo sucks. And here's why: because if you realize that something like 80% of credit card transactions, at least in North America, possibly globally, are handled by Visa and MasterCard between them. Right, so they've got really quite, and may I point out, both Visa and MasterCard are making something like 50% profit on their turnover. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that looks like a monopoly to me, but it looks like a monopoly to me, but I know nothing about finance and banking. So the fact that Apple is charging banks to play into this really doesn't bother me even in the slightest. It doesn't seem to bother me, it doesn't seem to bother the shop. And the relationship between, as Darian pointed out, Apple is, as I understand it, taking the risk here on payment processing and fraud. And if that's the case, well, fine. Why do I have a problem with this? As for the claim that all of us are worse off because of increased banking costs to the whole industry, I think that's really damn tenuous, I'm afraid to say at the end of the day. It's a bit like saying, that the banks drink too much Coca-Cola and therefore there's an expense there that could be cut back. I think this is flying a kite. I think actually probably what's more behind this was the point about Apple not having opened up the banking interface to third parties. And opening up specifically, there is an EU push to get Apple to open up the wallet to third parties, to which my response is kindly keep your hands off, thank you, because you start opening up stuff like this, and we then have to be even more super careful about fraud on me, on my cards, on my accounts. I choose to use Apple Pay. I could use a Visa card. I could use a MasterCard. I could use an Amex card if they take it. So I think it's a lot of hot air.
What say you, Nick Rawlinson?
Well, like John, I use Apple Pay all the time. I only use cash once a fortnight, and it's really inconvenient, actually. But there's going to have to be, unless Apple can make enough money off selling iPhones purely on the fact that you can pay with them, then there's got to be some charge somewhere to cover the costs of providing this service. And if there are costs for this, which we are entitled to get back, if that's where the case goes in the end, it'd be interesting to see whether the same could be said of any costs that are levied on merchants. Is that the word? Is that what the shops are? Technically, they're the merchants. Yep. Could we claim that we're experiencing higher prices in shops to cover those costs as well, and therefore we ought to be getting some money back for those from, big brands that are on the high streets? It'd be interesting to see where it goes.
Okay. Any more to add on this, Darian, before we shuffle along?
No, I was just racing to try and find out, because I feel like I have heard that the argument made that credit card transactions were transaction fees were having some kind of deleterious effect on the consumer economy, and there was some sort of regulation, but I can't find it now, I'm afraid. Maybe I'll see if I can dig that up and come back to it later on.
There was a big, a rather good YouTube video of the House Select Committee in the States. Shall we just say politely, de-trousering Visa and MasterCard some months back, as to how it was that both of them had managed to end up with almost exactly the same profitability and charge rates, and didn't this look like monopolistic behaviour? But no, I mean, this is the kind of behind the scenes thing. I don't feel I'm 25 quid out of pocket and for using Apple Pay, to be blunt. Because I don't think I am, and I think it's really tenuous stretch to say that something that's happening between Apple and some banks is negatively affecting the whole marketplace. I think that really is a bit of a stretch there.
Well, I think it's a philosophical argument, really, about how much do we itemize the impact of individual things. I found what I was looking for. It was last May. There was a ruling that MasterCard had been applying fees that had the impact of causing consumers to pay higher fees for their shopping, with merchants passing on the fees for using the card. And it says here millions of shoppers could get up to £70 each. I haven't heard a word more of that since it hit the headlines last May.
Okay, well, James London says he's just ordered a pint through Google Pay when he's listening to us on Discord. So cheers, James. And,
where's mine?
Yeah, quite. We're going to move along. And John, this one's with you. It actually is with you this time, and it's BitLocker.
Yes, BitLocker. That's of course, we all know it as the encryption technology used by Windows, or partly between Windows and the underlying hardware. Because to make BitLocker work, you need the encryption chip on your laptop, and it's used to encrypt your data on your hard disk. This is a good thing, because if your laptop gets stolen, you don't want people just to wander into your hard disk and extract all of your data. Now, the question, of course, is BitLocker has got keys, and those keys are set up when you set up Windows. And where is the master copy, if you like, or your backup copy, your recovery set of keys? Where are they held? Now, by default, they are stored in your Microsoft account on the effectively in Microsoft's cloud. And I think that's a pretty damn good place to store it. To be honest, I don't have a problem with that, especially for home and small business users. Because if you've still got access to the Microsoft account, you can then still get access to the BitLocker keys and recover a laptop. So let's say you've wiped Windows on a laptop, you can still get back into it by recovering the keys. Now, there is a facility inside BitLocker is part of this setup that you can not store the keys at Microsoft, but you can store them locally, and you have to then look after it, and that's great right until the point where you've lost it. So for most home users, I would say keep them in the cloud. That's very nice. Thank you very much. If you're a corporate user, you will probably not do this for probably fairly obvious reasons. You will manage your key sets for all of your estate of devices, and you will handle that internally as part of your security process. So you've got choices. Now, if you store BitLocker keys at Microsoft, they are not encrypted, i.e. Microsoft can read them. Okay, because it's not encrypted. So let me rephrase that carefully. They might be encrypted, but if they're encrypted, Microsoft has the keys. Okay, so Microsoft can read a BitLocker key held in Microsoft account on your behalf. Not unreasonably, I'd have to say. The problem is what happens when the FBI comes trundling up the front door and bangs on the front door and says, "Give us the keys to this laptop because we need to be able to decrypt its hard disk." And as you would expect for an American corporation with the FBI banging on the front door, they will hand over the keys. Now, at this point, you're going to say, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is appalling." The answer is, well, you chose to give the keys to Microsoft, and it's quite clear what's going on here. But the FBI have been asking for keys. And it is an absolute flood, I have to say. It's quite terrifying, the number. We think, Microsoft was told they get on average about 20 requests a year globally from the FBI. So this is not exactly a horrible thing. Now, you might stand up and say, "Oh well, Apple is much more sort of security conscious and wouldn't allow you to do that." The answer is, if you store stuff in Apple's iCloud, by default they can read it as well. Okay, they can read your hard disk encryption keys, the Apple equivalent of BitLocker. You can set it up so that Apple can't do that, but that requires you to turn on the enhanced encryption facilities, which, if you remember, the UK government now can't let us have because they took away that facility some months ago. So I think storm in a teacup. If you are a Windows user and you want to do super dodgy stuff and you don't want the FBI getting keys to your laptop, please let me point out, it's not just that the FBI will need the key, they also need the physical laptop in order to apply the key to the laptop. The key by itself is not actually of any use to anybody. But if you've got the physical laptop because the FBI have wandered up to your front door, tapped politely, opened the front door, offered you a cup of tea, and then rammed their way in to steal all of your electronic equipment, they will need to have the keys, and Microsoft will ultimately give them to him. Whether this is something that is going to get worse in the future is very hard to say because of the happenings in North America land. But that's more of a political question.
I'm not sure I would keep my encryption keys in OneDrive because that to me is a risk. And yes, okay, you need physical access to the machine as well. But if you've stolen the machine, I don't think it's beyond the realms, especially as I believe OneDrive still doesn't need two-factor encryption. It's not mandatory. That you could get into someone's OneDrive account and nick the encryption keys. So if you're going to the bother of encrypting your hard disk, I would just keep a printed copy of the key somewhere safe rather than leave it stored online. I'd be interested to hear what people on Discord, whether they have BitLocker turned on, what they do with their keys. Let us know on pcpro.link/Discord. Darren, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I use I use a wide variety of Windows machines set up kind of randomly. So I've got to be honest, I don't know which ones have BitLocker on and which ones don't. I do kind of rely on. I think Microsoft is smart to default to putting personal BitLocker keys somewhere in the cloud because otherwise, anyone who has ever worked in IT will know people do lose these things. Things go wrong, and they're not happy if you say, "I'm sorry, there is nothing we can do to help you." I think probably a billion people Apple have at different times said a silent thank you to Microsoft for having a backup of their BitLocker key that we never hear about, compared to, I have to assume it's going to be mostly criminals who curse Microsoft for the same reason. I was looking through Trump's. The only thing I was trying to find out was under what circumstances Microsoft does hand out these keys, because you wouldn't want it to be too easy. All I can find out is that they've said that they give that they sometimes agree to requests from authorities, so that it's possible that we could maybe ding them if we thought any Yahoo in a uniform could call them up and say, I want to go on a fishing expedition with this guy's laptop I've stolen. But that certainly doesn't seem to be the case, not if they're talking about 20 cases a year. So I think on balance, I have to say, although I completely understand Apple's very strict approach, I also completely get Microsoft's, and I'm not going to criticize them for it.
How secure are you, Nick?
Goodness knows. Whichever machine's in front of me, I just touch the keyboard and off we go. I mean, I'm working across about 6 machines, and they're a mixture of Linux and Mac OS, and one runs Windows, which sits in a drawer and gets turned on when I need to use it. So to be honest, I don't know how secure I am. I'm hoping I'm good enough, but I suspect the likes of Darren and John are streets ahead of me.
It's best to hope the FBI don't come knocking at your door, because I think you're in all kinds of trouble. So there's a range of opinions on the Discord. JJ says a secure section in OneNote in a separate account with local backups. Somebody else said they keep their encryption keys in 1Password. That's a good. In fact, I've got copies of my keys saved in Bitwarden for anybody who wants to try and attack my Bitwarden account. Paul C says Tim Apple has all of his data anyway. Michael Diaz says my BitLocker keys are only saved on an encrypted USB thumb drive. So a variety of different methods from the hoi polloi of the PC Pro audience there. So some tips if you want to secure your data. Microsoft not the only one in a bit of end-to-end controversy this week, John.
Have I missed something here? Please remind me.
You have. This is WhatsApp, who apparently are being sued in the States for...
Oh, yes, there's all sorts of claims that it isn't really as encrypted as they would like to think it is, yeah? And I saw a tweet from someone claiming to be the head of development of WhatsApp on Twitter X, saying it's all nonsense. So I was kind of like parked that one in the side of my head at this point.
Yeah, apparently this lawsuit is citing unnamed courageous whistleblowers who claim that they were Meta employees, and that if they wanted to view somebody's messages, all they had to do was send a task to a Meta engineer with an explanation that they needed access to WhatsApp messages for their job, and the engineering team will then grant them access, often without any scrutiny at all, according to the lawsuit. And the worker's workstation will then have a new window or widget available that can pull up any WhatsApp users' messages. As John says, Meta have said this is complete nonsense, and in fact replying to Elon Musk, of all people, who argued WhatsApp isn't secure on X, WhatsApp chief Will Cathcart said this is totally false. WhatsApp can't read messages because the encryption keys are stored on your phone and we don't have access to them. This is a no-merit headline-seeking lawsuit brought by the very same firm defending NSO after their spyware attacked journalists and government officials. So, I mean, obviously none of us will know the truth behind it, but it would seem remarkable if WhatsApp were actually giving their staff some kind of backdoor into WhatsApp.
I would have
messages.
expected to hear something about it by now, because WhatsApp has been quite mainstream for a decade in the UK and much longer overseas. So I would have thought there would have been some kind of high-profile link by now that could only be explained by insider access, if it were really as easy as they make out.
Yeah, well, if this does end up in court, I guess we'll find out sooner or later.
And of course, if WhatsApp did have an easy backdoor like that, it would have been so helpful, wouldn't it, to have, for our security services to have done offline backups of all of our politicians as WhatsApp groups, so that when things needed to be explained a few years ago, the politicians in question couldn't turn around and say, oh, it's all been deleted.
Yes, quite. Maybe we shouldn't venture down that path. Let's instead turn to the Rebel Alliance, Nick.
Yes, this is Mozilla talking about a rebel alliance this time. Basically, it's committing about $1.4 billion from its reserve to supporting what it calls mission-driven organizations working on issues of safety and governance around AI. A lot of this money is going to be invested through Mozilla Ventures, and some of it's going to be grants through Mozilla Builders. And it's not doing is building a competitor AI company. It's more about nurturing a network of smaller players that can collectively offer an alternative to centralized giants. Obviously 1.4 billion sounds like a lot of money, but it's not really a huge amount when you look at competitors like OpenAI with 60 billion. I say competitors, they're not competitors, but established firms like OpenAI, which has got reputedly 60 billion in reserves, and Anthropic, which is about 30 billion. And then obviously you've got people like Google and Meta, which have got other revenue streams coming in as well that can fund their AI activities. And of course, the other question is, if it's investing in all these organizations that are focused on things like security and safety and being open, how do they fit into the landscape that's already developing, where one of the strongest motives is profit? So are AI organizations, the big AI organizations, wanting to or going to want to deploy safety features put together by the Rebel Alliance, if it might harm their potential to compete within the marketplace, or to be the largest organization, or to grow at the rate that they're going to have to? And regulators too, I think, are going to be wary maybe of a country losing its edge. There's already talk about whether China or America is going to be the dominant player, and either of those countries going to be willing to implement anything that might give their competitor an advantage. So it's interesting to see what happens. I'm hoping that with Mozilla being behind it, a big name, that maybe it'll give these smaller organizations some kind of clout and a bigger voice, because they can all work together. I think Mark Carney came up with the phrase middle powers, didn't he, at Davos a few days ago. Maybe this is the middle powers in the AI world coming together too.
Problem is, I'm not sure Mozilla is even a middle power these days. I mean, if you look at the Firefox market share, I think it's down well below 5% now. So, I mean, even if they do manage to get some kind of, alternative AI services into Firefox, it's a decreasingly small number of people that it's actually going to be exposed to.
I don't think this is about getting AI into Firefox. This is more about nurturing startups that have a very ethical outlook on AI, or are producing things that will help with testing AI, or making sure that AI is used responsibly. And that's, as I say, I think that's brilliant, and I think we need that. The question is, if you're a large AI cloud provider, is there going to be an incentive for you to plug those services into what you're offering, if it might reduce the chances of you making a profit? If you're an organization that's rolling AI out across your seats in the organization, why might you also want to go to one of those products as well, if there's no key advantage to you as an organization? I think that it'd be very interesting to see what these organizations within the Rebel Alliance are actually offering, and how compelling those offerings are to both businesses and to cloud providers of AI services.
Have they named anyone who's involved, Nick?
There are a few names floating around. As far as I can see, having read it, I wouldn't want to definitively say, or read about it, definitively say what these organizations are, and I mean, you can find them fairly easily, but there's a lot of talk about whether they're happy with the term Rebel Alliance, and other organizations, I've seen their names linked to it without necessarily actually being confirmed that they are part of it. I think there's quite a bit of speculation still at this stage, because obviously it's early days.
Okay, Darian?
Well, I hate to say it. I think this sounds like a very, a good and positive development, but it's reminding me greatly of the browser ballot, and kind of, when Nick was saying, do the big players have any incentive to work with the middle ones? Of course they don't. And what we've seen in the past is that people, for better or worse, they like a known, trusted brand. They want, remember that advert with Anthony Hopkins? You want the big bank, you want the big name, you want to go to the trusted, known ChatGPT or Gemini, where there's lots of documentation, there's lots of people with experience. I mean, have to admit, there are certainly reasons to go away from those things. I will leak a little spoiler in about 5 or 6 weeks. You lovely listeners who subscribe to the magazine will be seeing a feature on running your own LLM on your home network on a surprisingly lightweight piece of hardware. That's assuming that Nick doesn't kill me for all the questions I've been asking him about it in the meantime. But yeah, I think I'm afraid, while I think this is a very well-intentioned idea that maybe will raise some worthwhile awareness, etc., I will be surprised if we're still hearing about the Rebel Alliance in, say, 18 months' time.
You signing up, John?
Well, I'm sort of deeply cynical about an awful lot of this stuff. In fact, I'm known to be deeply cynical about most things, I guess. But I mean, I applaud the effort. Let's be quite clear about that. People who are wanting to do this and do this in a better way, that is a good thing. Whether they're going to actually have the money, the traction, the capability, and so forth, and also the concept of ethical AI is kind of an interesting one. I like the whole concept, especially if you're running stuff locally. But the question is, what's the data set? Where did it come from? Is this just a small subset of something that a big company did by going off and inhaling the entire internet, and then creating some models of different sizes and weightings and so forth that you can run locally? Well, you might feel happier about running it locally, but it's a bit like, I'm trying to come up with a good analogy. It's sort of like tainted from the beginning. So I'd be very interested to know where their model training has come from, where the data has come from. Are they focusing in on your own localized data sets rather than LLMs that are more global in nature? So I wish them well, but I don't know. I think I'm with Darian here, which is I don't think this is going to work long term for them.
I don't think that's necessarily the way this is heading. I think a better analogy would be if cars were invented last year but without seatbelts. I think this is more a campaign to make cars safer and put seatbelts in them and brakes that actually work. I think this is less about building an AI competitor to people like OpenAI and Anthropic, and more about building bolt-on tools or supplementary tools, or tools that would work within an organization, or tools that might work behind the scenes to ensure safety and governance and to make things open as well. Not necessarily about making yet another provider of AI services.
Feels like the kind of thing that government should be making sure that AI companies do, rather than Firefox trying to do this from the ground up. I mean, I'm not knocking them, but it just seems an ambitious effort from a company that
Brussels should be doing.
Yes, quite. I don't know. Well, I mean, there is the AI Act, isn't it? And I guess that's, there's still bits of OpenAI's feature set. We don't have Sora over here yet, for the very reason that even though we're outside the EU, they lump us in with the EU because of the regulations are still very synchronized, and they're still waiting for that to be approved. So there are elements of the EU getting involved. There's a good point made by, who was it, Nick on Discord, who said that Vivaldi also pushing back on AI in their latest release today. So yes, Vivaldi, the browser maker, has said along that they're not going to build any AI tools into their browser. So there is some, I'm not sure Mozilla and Firefox going that far, but it does appear to be a sort of divide opening up between the browser makers, and it's the ones at the more niche end of the market, certainly, that are sort of raising the more skeptical eyebrows at AI, whilst the likes of Google and not really Apple. We haven't seen Apple really build much into the browser as yet, but it's certainly Google are going full-throated towards AI in the browser. In fact, there was something today about Google Chrome now coming with an agent basically that allows it to go and book flights for you by literally taking control of the browser and stuff like that. John's shaking his head so violently it's about to fall off. So before we lose John's bonds, we should probably move on. And this is TikTok, and TikTok, which was or is owned in parts of the world by a Chinese company, is now only part owned by said Chinese company in the US. So this, you may remember, was a big big thing right at the beginning of the second Trump coming, where he basically demanded that TikTok was divested of its Chinese ownership and put into American hands by and large, and that has now been completed. So around, I think it's about 80% of the company is now owned by American investors. And the three so-called managing investors are Silver Lake, Oracle, and MGX. Each of those hold about 15%. And then there are other investors, including Michael Dell's Dell Technologies, and various others. The one thing that is remarkably consistent amongst these companies is that they are all reasonably aligned to the Trump cause. So, as we said, Silver Lake, who have a sort of, well, they've donated to both the Democrats and Republicans in their time, to be fair, but they certainly have made some donations to Republicans in recent times. Oracle, of course, owned by Larry Ellison, who's very tight with the Trumps. As we know, he's Trump leaning quite heavily for Paramount to be allowed to take over Netflix. To the Warner Brothers instead of Netflix. So very friendly. The CEO of Oracle was on Trump's transition team in 2016. And MGX, the other company, is an Abu Dhabi technology firm, basically owned by the Saudis. So there are fears, to we put it that way, that yes, they may have managed to divest Chinese control of the US version of TikTok, but in doing so, they've largely handed it to Mr. Trump and his cohorts. And the fear, of course, is that that control will be used to turn TikTok into a propaganda arm, basically. And Trump's been pretty open about that. I mean, he's sort of half jokingly in the way Trump half jokes about stuff all the time, but he said recently that he was looking forward to TikTok becoming 100% MAGA, in his own words. And in fact, earlier this week, there were reports that when people were trying to enter the name Epstein into TikTok, that was being blocked. The US TikTok have pushed back on that, said that that was merely a glitch because of some updates that they've been applying just after the takeover. So what do we make of this, gentleman? Nick, what do you make of this all?
I've never used TikTok.
No, neither have I.
Oh. So we're just the right kind of relation to be talking about it.
I think we're too old, Nick.
It's interesting because it's a Chinese firm that has had to become part owned by an American entity. But I don't think we would raise eyebrows if that was in the opposite direction. Is it not quite common that if you set up a business in China, you have to be part Chinese owned? Is that right? Am I barking up some random tree
I've
there?
heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe there is precedent for this, but it's only because it's happening in one direction that I'm not going to comment on the potential future content of it, but, just the business structure of it. I think maybe there is precedent here. But because it's working in one direction and not the other direction, we find it a remarkable thing.
Yeah, just to be clear, they're not American. Those investors don't own part of ByteDance, which is the Chinese owner. So
right.
US TikTok has been spun off into a separate entity of which ByteDance owns 20%, and now the American shareholders own 80%. So it's not quite buying into the company as such; it's buying into that US version of TikTok. But
okay.
Nevertheless, John, what do you make of it all?
I must confess, I'm a bit confused by this. Okay, because we had this thing called TikTok out of China. We knew what it was, the size and shape of it. Now they've created this sort of American TikTok. Okay, and it's got these owners and so forth. I believe that it's actually running in the United States, the American version. Is that correct?
Yes, they sort of split it off.
Right. So undoubtedly it'll be running on Oracle services. I mean, because like with Larry's checkbook involved, it would be kind of a bit strange if it didn't. Okay, so Is this now an entirely separate entity compared to the Chinese one? Where's the data coming from? Is my question. So is it that it's a common data store that they're using that's distributed China to America, but the American side can do its own adjustments to the algorithms? Or, I'm a little bit unclear here as to,
Yeah.
if you post something into American TikTok, will it appear outside of America, and vice versa? Because I don't think that's actually been terribly well explained.
Yes, it's pretty much exactly as you said. So the app remains global, and the Chinese company still owns the TikTok for the rest of the world. There's interoperability between the two, so you can post globally and it will still appear in America. It's not ring fenced, and ByteDance still own the overall algorithm, are still controlling the commercial side of it, from what I understand. But the Americans have the ability to alter the algorithm in the States. So
Okay,
they,
so
they don't
if I
own
go
the
to
technology,
America,
but they can alter it.
I'm going back to the States in some weeks' time. If I go there and I was using TikTok, which I confess I don't, but if I did, as a UK TikTok person, do I get the American service or do I get a UK service? What where is my account tied to? When you start applying geographically based different filtering, you wonder what happens when you move around a bit.
Yeah, I imagine because you're registered in the UK, you will still see the UK part. In the same way as if you go to America and fire up Facebook, you're still seeing the UK version of Facebook. And let's be clear that all the social networks do this. This isn't exclusive to TikTok. Everyone, has different geographical versions of their social networks where different content is distributed and different trending feeds and whatever.
So, given that Trump was trying to get TikTok actually shut down and banned in America, and this is the solution to this, does this American entity actually have either the capability or the will or the desire to actually do this kind of American-oriented filtering and biasing of the algorithm, or is this basically just an awful lot of hand waving and cash flowing around in a circle?
Well, I imagine they would quite like to control the content because they've seen how that works previously. I mean, Elon Musk isn't in it for the technological adventure of it all. He's in it for the influence. And certainly, I think what we've seen over the past 18 months or so will give us a pretty clear indication of what could potentially happen with TikTok. But you've been quiet on this, Darian, so far. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, the reason is I've been kind of grappling with trying to work out my own feelings about this, and I think I've uncovered it. I think I'm experiencing a sort of cognitive dissonance because although I don't really, let's say I don't really support everything Donald Trump does or says, I do understand the initial argument that he made back in 2020, saying that this is a hugely influential social media site and it's entirely operated by and within the oversight of basically a rival superpower, and there was no evidence that ByteDance had, been doing anything either to spy on US users or to distribute propaganda. But it seemed I can see that would be a valid concern for any country to have that kind of potential vulnerability to what you might consider a rival regime. However, the reason why I'm stuck kind of on how I feel about this is that personally I don't really trust Donald Trump either to act in the interests of America, which puts me in a position where I don't really know what side to be on. There isn't a side that I want to be on. I think overall I'd have to say it doesn't bother me too much. I don't think it's too controversial in principle to say that local governments should have more control and oversight over what is being distributed to their citizens, because one hopes and expects that the government represents the citizens and is elected by the citizens, and it's really, it just comes down to self-determination. This just feels, I think, like a special case because, speaking only for myself, that the trust in those things I've just mentioned is not there with the Trump administration.
Nick, were you itching to say something there?
No, I was watching the bus go past.
Do pay attention, for Christ's sake, Rawlinson. This is a professional outfit. Okay. Well, since we're bored, Nick, we might as well move on to Nibs then, and let's start with you, Nick.
Yes, this is news that Apple has updated iOS 12. That first shipped in 2017, and it's the most recent operating system that supports the iPhone 5S, 6, and 6 Plus. It hasn't been updated since 2023, so this is actually fairly big news, except for the fact that you don't get any new features. What it actually does, it would appear, is update a certificate that is required to keep iMessage and FaceTime running beyond January 2027. And if you have an iPad, then the OS for that, which was updated at the same time or shipped at the same time as iOS 12, has also had an update.
Paul C on Discord saying the iPhone 6S onwards also got updates. It's a long time. Feels a long time since we were talking about those handsets. But thank you, Nick. Darian, next one's for you.
Yeah, Reactos. Do you remember Reactos? It was launched in the mid-90s. It was intended to be a cross-platform, I think open source operating system that was binary compatible with not only Windows applications but Windows drivers. It's a 32-bit code base, and I think an indication of its age is that there's code available for PowerPC architecture, MIPS, Itanium, DEC Alpha. Well, anyway, so this is still going. They're still working on it. It will still. It's just reached its 30-year anniversary. It's been going for 30 years, and it's reached. The latest release is version 0.4.15, and it still doesn't run the majority of 32-bit software from the 90s. But they're still working on it.
Go on, John.
Just as a side issue, I was chatting in the pub with Jeff Campbell on the channel a few nights ago about the I think it's called Asahi Linux, which is getting Linux onto the Apple M platform, and they're quite excited to announce they've managed to get it to kind of boot on an M4 maybe, but you've got like a keyboard and a trackpad and maybe a bit of Christmas cake, and that's kind of about it really. And it was just a philosophical point about I hugely admire the effort that these people are putting in to try to do this, and then at the same time wonder what on earth are they doing and shouldn't they go out and get a life? Because does it actually matter at the end of the day? I can see the technical challenge, and like you're talking there about Racked doing 32-bit Windows binaries. I mean, it's a bit kind of like I don't know, bring back the Beatles or something, isn't it?
I really, I support that, John. Anyone who's going to put Linux onto more platforms gives me more hardware that I can use in the future when it's not good enough or not old enough, young enough to still be getting patches and updates of its official operating system. When I've got a Mac Mini here, which is, it's 12 months old, so it's still got loads and loads of life in it, but maybe in 6 or 7 years' time, I'd want to put Linux on that. And because the hardware is pretty decent, I think Linux would run on it really well. And then I can retire the very old kind of crusty Linux machine that I've got on the other side, which is fine at the moment, but when I go beyond
to my left here, your left, my right, whatever, is a 2013 Mac Pro, high-end spec. It was 8,000 quid new, and it's still doing work, but its OS support is well out of date. There are tools out there that can, you can leverage the latest Mac OS onto it by kind of tricking things behind the scenes. And maybe it's time I retired it off and put something on there, but it's Intel, so I've got a lot of choices. I was actually looking for Linux Mint. I was actually looking for ARM64 compatible Linux desktops, and there really aren't very many. There isn't a Linux Mint for ARM64, which I find a little bit surprising. Anyway, this has turned very much from not being a nib to a John Long rant, so I'll shut up at this point.
Thank you very much. Well, self-censored. And the final nib this week is Google. We're all about lawsuits this week, but Google has paid 51 million of your Queen's English pounds to settle a lawsuit in the US, which basically accused it of eavesdropping onto people's private conversations. And they did this by people inadvertently activating the Google Assistant. So if you were on a phone conversation, activated Google Assistant, it was listening to what you said, and those conversations are stored somewhere in the Google Cloud. Google always denied it was doing anything wrong here, but has paid 51 million quid to settle this class action lawsuit in the US. And I think $22 million of that, which is about a third of it, is going to get snaffled up by the lawyers. So as ever, the lawyers are the big winner from a class action lawsuit. We are still rattling on despite interrupting the nibs. We are rattling on at a fierce pace this week. We might even get in under an hour. So let's get Lee's spreadsheet out and find out if this is going to be a record podcast. But in the meantime, Hot Hardware's with you, John.
It is, and it's going to be really quick because this is fabulous. It's hot. You should go and buy it. We're done.
Not
no.
that quick.
Okay. I suppose I should give a little bit more background to this, which is if you use Apple AirTags. Oh, and by the way, hot news to go into our Hot Hardware. Apple launched the AirTag 2 at the beginning of this week. Improvements are basically on the 60 gigahertz radio range. The speaker's a bit louder. The battery life's the same. And most importantly, it's physically the same size. Why does this matter? Because there's an awful lot of stuff out there that has been built to take AirTags, items like into luggage, little special pockets in luggage, and coming up with a different AirTag size gratuitously would have been really bad news. This is extremely important for things like interconnects, which is one reason why Apple hung on to Lightning for so long, because there were so many third-party devices that had Lightning connectors. Anyway, I digress. We have here the Elevation Lab time capsule, and it's all of $19.99 if you buy one of them. It's $29.99 if you buy two of them, and it's $39.99 if you buy four of them. I like this kind of bundled deal. So what is it? It's a case. And if you unscrew the lid and take out the inside very nice green bit and look on the rear, it takes two AAA batteries. Put those in there, pop it back into the case, take your AirTag, take the cover off the AirTag, take the CR whatever it is, 2032 battery, sit it on here, and it wakes up because of the batteries underneath, and then screw the lid back on top. Yes, it does come with the tools for doing this, and suddenly you've now got an AirTag with a 5-year battery life. They do a slightly larger one, which will take AA batteries, and that is 10-year life. So why is this important? And the answer is, well, if you're going to go and hide away an AirTag somewhere useful, like in luggage, you don't want to have to keep thinking every time you go on holiday every year, have I changed the battery on my AirTag? Or you might hide this away, for example, on a motorbike, under the seat or somewhere, as a little AirTag, or place it somewhere usefully. And making it fully waterproof, but also giving it a 5-year life, is a really big deal. And it doesn't look like an AirTag, which is also a very good thing. So if some thief is looking for it, it's not so obvious as a nice shiny white circular thing. Now, if you like AirTags, this is great. If you think Apple AirTags are the work of the devil because they don't work nicely on Android, well, I'm sorry, this really isn't for you. But let us have our little fun, if you don't mind. So I've got a few of these, and I have put them around. I've put them into my suitcase that went off to CES in the hold. It works fine. And at whatever it is, $39 for a 4-pack, it's peanuts, and it solves an issue with AirTags, which is the battery life lasting around about a year or so. It means you can forget about it for a while, which is a good thing. The larger one, I've got friends who have done the 10-year version, hidden it away in motorbike panniers, other places that you want to keep an AirTag, and they appear to work just fine. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a good thing. You don't need a screwdriver, James London. You need the supplied standard Allen key, which is fine, but you don't need to get into them for 5 years. I leave it to you, gentlemen.
So I've got two questions. One, how does the AA or AAA batteries connect to the AirTag itself?
It connects through this. So the batteries are on the lower half of this insert, and on the top is the base that what's effectively a fake 2032, which the AirTag sits onto, and that's just wired through. So yeah, it's really, really simple.
So you're effectively removing the bottom half of the AirTag.
Yeah, as I said, you take the AirTag cover off, you take the 2032 battery out. I would suggest you don't throw the cover away in case you want to put a 2032 back in at some point. But you then sit it on top here, pop it into its case and screw it down, and Robert is your mother's brother.
The other question I've got, and you sort of answered it, I guess, but would not putting in that kind of case harm the signal that it receives?
Nope, seems to work fine. I had absolutely no problems at LAX and Heathrow. Just worked.
Okay.
So no, I don't. I mean, it's some sort of a plastic thing. It's not a metal case, which obviously would be a really bad idea. So it's all plastic apart from the little screws around that are used to hold the case down.
Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen?
No, I mean, it's pretty clear what it is and what it does. I will just say I did laugh. I was briefly browsing the website, and I saw one of the benefit lines on the website is that the 5-year battery is, and I quote, half the size of our 10-year battery.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the lovely Running Dak has already got the poll going on Discord. So if you're listening live on Discord, get your votes in now. It's already disappearing off the screen, so you might have to scroll up a bit.
John Bennell's asking for UK stockists. I'm sorry. I mean, I haven't even looked. I just bought them direct from their website, and it came within a week or so. I bought some of these, and I bought some of their tags and stuff like that. It was totally painless.
Okay. So let's start with you, Nick.
I'm torn. I've got 4 AirTags and I love them. And what I really like about them is how small. There's one hidden on my bike, and my phone was screaming at me in the pub the other day because I'd left my bike in an unfamiliar place, because I've geofenced 2 areas in town where it doesn't warn me because it knows I should be leaving the bike there, and I parked it somewhere different. So I love it for that. I wouldn't be able to, because it's a push bike. It's not like John's more meaty, manly bike. I wouldn't have anywhere to hide something like this on my bike. So I think it is a hot technology. It's just not the right technology for me. So I'm going hot.
Okay, Nick. Darian.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. I'm surprised, really, that Apple doesn't make, an extended battery case itself, because as everybody says, 12 months does go quickly. But if Apple did make it, it would be $64.99. So I have to say the third-party solution here just is exactly what you want in every way, except for the question, except for 2 questions. One, is there a UK distributor? And 2, it's not what they call Elevation Labs' fault, but still, these things aren't properly fully compatible with Android. I realise there are technical reasons for that, but it holds it back for me. Nevertheless, yes, this is a good thing, and it is hot.
I think it's hot as well. I've only got one AirTag, and I've lost a bugger because the battery ran out, and now I can't find where we left it. So,
of course, if Apple had made a case like this, it would be branded Hermes, and it would be £599, wouldn't it? So,
and be titanium encased.
Absolutely, with diamonds and crystals. So, yeah, I mean, it's not an expensive item, and if you are in the Apple ecosystem, which is a great big caveat, I get that, but if you are and you're an AirTag user, then I think it's hot as hell.
I do wonder what airport security would make of something like that in the bottom of a bag, though. But maybe we'll get to find out at some point when John gets
I'll
holed
report.
up at LA with the rubber glove treatment. John,
again.
Yes.
I
take it you are hot.
Oh, I'm hot, absolutely.
And so are the great unwashed, the hoi polloi of the PC Pro listenership, who have given it 79% hot compared to 21% no. So that's an absolute barnstorming win for what they called Elevation Labs AirTag battery compartment thingamabobs. So John's put links into the Discord chat if you're interested, and you can find the supplier. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Cutting under an hour. That's pretty good going. I'm off to consult Lee about whether this is the fastest PC Pro podcast in history, and we'll be back this time next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Don't delay your goodbye, Nick, just so it adds on extra seconds.
Had gravitas.
Yeah.
I normally say, I've got to run away immediately because we've overrun. We haven't overrun, but I still do have to run away immediately because today is just mad. So, thanks everyone.
I need to find some batteries because my mouse ran out in the middle of that, so I've not been able to do anything. I haven't been able to move you around, I haven't been able to look at my notes. If I sound really confused, that's why.
Maybe Elevation Labs will produce an extra big mouse battery and
well,
you come up with
hopefully.
a mouse like this next week.
It's
Don't use
one
Bluetooth
thing I
noise during podcasts.
One area where I think Windows is still better than macOS is that it's just better at pervasive keyboard controls. But what can you do?
There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, listeners.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.